Alright, here we go. Another evening. And it's about 4:30. Gonna lose the light. Cold as usual, but today we have some parts. So, quick recap. Last time I was looking at the valves, pulled them out, cleaned them, lapped them as best I could, the original OEM valves. I was really struggling with making a decision to use those existing, I think 30-year-old valves, or at least as old as the quad, 1988, or get some new valves. It's just a real thick lip, and I'm looking to lap them, and I just wasn't convinced that I could get these done well. I mean, you look at all this corrosion on top here. I'm hoping this goes a little faster, a little easier with new valves. Oh, look at that. There is a new intake valve, exhaust valve, and it looks to be what I need. Oh yeah, look at that. Much nicer, cleaner, especially when you compare to the original one. This one has that lip worn way down in there. This is nice and smooth. Actually, it looks like I can get the lapping tool to make some suction on the top there compared to this one. Very nice. One difference is that the new one is a little recessed. But again, a good call. It's a little difficult to make out on the camera, but there's quite a groove worn in on this one, where this has got a nice bevel waiting to be lapped. So that's what I'm gonna do. Put a little bit of lapping compound on here, slip it in, lap it, and then we're gonna start slowly but surely putting this back together and see if we can get that PSI up a bit. Before I do, I'll set these off to the side here. See if I can get some brushes down in and get some growtiness out of here. Let's see. I'm going to start pretty small, see where we go. That's a special kind of ugly down in that exhaust port. I got chunks of carbon out of there. So it's still pretty dirty, but we're gonna hit that with some carb cleaner and blast it out a little bit when we're ready. Intake, it's still all roughed up. We don't want that all smooth. We want that to slow down the gas coming in a little bit so the fuel air mixture has more time to mix, so we don't port that or buff it. The exhaust one though, I want to do a better job in there. I just have to figure out how. That won't change the compression, just the speed of the gas leaving, and hopefully get more exhaust out of the compression chamber. Make it run again a hair better, but this is not a race machine. This is a fun machine. So if I don't do that, I don't expect that is going to make any kind of noticeable or appreciable difference. So let's lap a valve. Now I am hoping that I can lap this by hand, because last time I did a little bit with the drill, and using a drill is not ideal. So with the lapping tool, you get your suction on here and you end up moving it back and forth, kind of reseating it, so you get a nice even polish. when you're using a drill, it only goes in one direction. And what can happen is some of the grit here kind of settles into just one spot, and as you keep spinning, it'll cut a groove. Just cut a groove right in there, so you end up with, you know, instead of having a nice, perfectly beveled surface, there's just kind of cuts down in there to allow air to escape. So my thought on it is, if I had something really bad, I might start with the drill to get it cleaned up, but I wouldn't finish with the drill. I don't believe using a drill and then stopping would give me the quality. Oh, would you look at that? Back and forth, easy, sticks right to a new valve. This is fantastic. Much easier to lap in a new valve as opposed to a 30-year-old valve. A little bit more compound. Give it a little more here. And I'm finding not to go too hard with the pressure because the suction will slip around. Just kind of light back and forth with a little bit of downward. What I'm looking at here is the nice dull shine, and that's where I have lapped it. The edges still have a little bit of shine each side of the cut there, but I like that nice wide dull band in there. That's where everything's been lapped. Again, I'm looking at the dull band, nice and smooth. I'm not seeing that any grit has been cut in all the way around. Visually, it looks like a nice seat. I'm going to stop there with the intake valve. So again, if you look at it, it's all shiny along the cut side of this valve, and as we lap it in, we're going to get, you know, that shiny band is going to be dull as we scratch it up and seat it. Haven't wiped it off yet, but you can see the compound sitting around the middle there. I'm going to redistribute the compound a little bit here. Add another dab, just a little bit. And when you put it right in and start grinding, you can hear the grit right as you get going, and it gets a little finer sounding as you keep grinding. And I'm lifting the valve and setting it back down in to kind of reset the compound so I can keep grinding. Here's the exhaust valve, and again, we've taken that shine off, nice and dull all the way around, not quite to the edge. There's still a little bit of a band of shine there, but I think that that is lapped nicely, unless I want to keep grinding down in. But again, I'm learning as I go, and I think that that's going to be fine. All right, let me hit this with some carb cleaner and start putting it back together. At the risk of burying more tools in my space here, I'm putting a new rag on my bench to try to keep things as clean as I can. So here we go. Let's start with the exhaust valve. I'm going to put a little bit of oil on this as it goes back in. Just a touch. There we go, slides nice. Now, first things first, the rocker slides back in. And I have to get this rocker to press down in, and I'm not quite sure what that's going to be like because getting this one out was such a pain. I'm anticipating I'm going to have to whack it with a mallet or something. See if I can knock it more of the way. A little 10 mil on it. And without knocking my fingers would be kind of nice too. That fits on there pretty well. Come on, almost. Ultimately, I think what's binding it up now is getting the rocker arm into the channel on the other side. Hopefully that's not going to be too much of a pain here. Thread this down on top of the valve. My little valve kit. Super handy for doing valves. You know, I wonder if I just made a ugly mistake by not putting the valve springs and keeper in before I secured the valve arm. Oh, I think I'm gonna have to pull this out, and it's gonna be a pain to do it. I just did that in the wrong order. Well, you know, you live and learn. I wonder if there's any chance that I'll be able to pull this out with a pry bar, as opposed to using my technique from last time of backing it out with washers. Guess we find out. Any chance we can whack on this to pull it? You know, may have an option B here. Hold up. The cam retainer, I'll call it here, flopped out when I gave a whack, which makes me believe that I could, come on now, lift the cam out. And if I can lift the cam out, look at that. Set that off to the side. If I can lift the cam out, which, wow, that just seems so much easier than trying to work these two with the M6. I'm gonna go back and say the way to do this, it would seem, is get an M10 bolt and pull that, because that should allow me to get the rocker arm tipped all the way up out of the way, which should allow me to finish putting the valve back together. Two springs, and I still have the rubber gasket down in here. That's all good and fine. Yeah, we're gonna be all right. Put my protection on. Rather not have anything pop and get me. Tell you what I'm thinking now. Hit the keeper with a little bit of oil and maybe it'll stick a little better once I get it into place. Just a theory. Let's try going at this with a pair of needle nose pliers. And you know what else is doing this on an angle may also be proving to be difficult. These things want to fall out. Alright, somebody tell me their technique for keepers. Got it. So there's one. And I'm just putting these down in so I don't lose them, because we're going to have to do a full valve adjustment later on. So let's do the other side while the cam is out and see if it doesn't go better getting those keepers in on this next go around. So if you can see, I have it depressed just about level with the detent in the top of the valve there. That seems to be the sweet spot for getting those keepers to sit in there. Alright, not the worst thing in the world, but getting keepers in is at least a little bit of a pain, I'll give it that. So here we go. Slip my rocker arm back down in here. At least this way I can see. Slide this retainer, which looks like almost a 90-degree angle, with this kind of screwdriver based cut in it. Oh, why does everything gotta be this hard? So this arm sits all the way right down in there, and that feels right. You know, I'm going to confirm that's right with a big screwdriver, see if it twists, and if it doesn't twist, I know that that cutout is in all the way. you know, and that doesn't twist, and I'm not gonna push it any kind of crazy way. Oh, there it goes. Actually it went further in, just walking it back and forth, sitting nice and flush. Here's my worry. This one should be further in. I'm afraid this guy is getting caught right there somewhere. I can't tell. But let's see if I can spin it. If I put a bolt all the way down in it, the M6, it was just always so tight in this head. Nope, we're just going to strip the threads right off, so that's not going to do anything. Alright, instead of a rubber mallet, give it a tap this way. That moves it. There we go. Now the bolt comes right back out. Okay, so still learning here how to put these things back together, but these spare M6 bolts have been handy a couple times now. Alright, now I'm satisfied those arms are down in there. Let's put our cam back in. Got both of my rocker arms up out of the way. In other words, tipped all the way down onto my springs. I ought to inspect it while it's out, but this thing looks just fine. And it can only go in one direction. The other thing to note is to put it in this way, the both lobes down, slips right in with the two cutouts here. So if I do that, it slips right down into its spot. No need to do anything fancy. I might have to give them a little bit of a tap to get all the way down in there again though. Probably the reason it's not going all the way. Got some tension on a spring here. There we go. There we go. All the way in. Sits nice and flush with that lip. Now, these retaining rings, when they sit in, it's going to fall into this detent here. So this bushing, nicely oiled up, slips right down in. Very nice. This will keep the rocker arm from sliding. That guy sits in there. This one sits right on top, like so. And then you bend these locking tabs in. Bend these tabs back up. You know, also, I don't like how I'm trying to bend these up against this aluminum case right here. Okay, bent up, locked in place. Where we are now, I believe that we are ready to do our valve adjustments, because we don't want that kind of play or that kind of play. But for now, I'm going to pause it again. We have new valves in. That looks really nice. They've been lapped. Surface is clean. Keepers are back in. Valves are back in. Rocker arms are back in. All locked back in. So the next thing to do here, once I adjust the valves, I'll get it back on the quad. At that point, I think things are going to come back together pretty quick. The gaskets are ready to go. The surface is nice and clean. Get the head bolts back in. At this point, we know that the rocker arm retainers are all the way in, so my head bolt should slip right down in. So we should be able to crank this thing for a compression test pretty quick the next time I come back out here. But for now, time to take a break, go inside. I've been out here for an hour or so, so we'll do that next time.